Let's explore kingship. The image for masculinity is often the circle with the arrow, could be described as centered directionality. Our purpose for exploring kingship is to go deeper in the center. So what does it mean to go deeper in the center? As we go deeper in the center by exploring kingship, we want to do so in a way that goes beyond simple masculine psychology. We want to move into authentic male spirituality for the purpose of connecting with that deeper identity in man. So the greatest driving force is to live consistent with your identity. And as we go into this center, you're going to connect with this spiritual power to live out this call to greatness, this call to be a king. All right, so as we explore kingship, we're going to look at 3 dimensions of kingship. 1, initiation. 2, the currency of the king. And 3, the dark night of the soul. And so first of all, with initiation, when you hear the term kingship, when you hear the term king, what are some kings that you think of? What kings come to mind? For myself, King Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table come to mind. Another one would be King Aragorn and the Lord of the Rings comes to mind. Furthermore, you've got King David from the Old Testament and to be the king of Jerusalem. There are some other kings that come to mind as well, though. King Leonidas from the Spartans, that heroic king, that valiant warrior. Also, finally, Odysseus from the Iliad and the Odyssey was the king of Ithaca. So these are some kings that come to mind for myself, but who are the kings that come to mind for you? Part of initiation is the telling of stories, these stories that get told of the kings of old, and even these kings that are kings in other dimensions, or kings in the kings from mythology and kings from literature. Why do these stories get passed on? Oftentimes I picture these stories being told under the night sky, connected with constellations of stars, stars being connected and constellations becoming characters. And there's this epic story that spans from the east to the west. And as fathers and sons stand beneath the night sky and tell these stories, those stories are an initiation. What one is happening, the reason that the stories of these kings, of their trials and their testings, their failures and their redemptions, of their greatness and of their valor, the reason these stories stand the test of time and are passed on through the ages is because they speak to something deep in the heart. As these stories are told, our call to be a king gets woken up, and we find our place in the matrix of kings. The real king, a true king, raises up other kings. Real power shares power. Real power empowers. And when a king raises up another king to find their place in the matrix of kings, they themselves are raised up. The rising tide raises all ships. This is the idea of this true kingship. You're a king not just for yourself, you're a king for others. But in exercising this kingship, you're not alone. There's a brotherhood of kings. The most powerful force of the universe is that of belonging. And it's a pleasure for me to share with you that you belong to this matrix of kings. So after initiation, second, we want to look at the currency of the king. The currency of the king is certainty. A child needs an external source for certainty. So a child is utterly dependent on its parents or some adult to provide certainty for them. But through growth and development, the child eventually becomes an adult. One of the characteristic aspects of being an adult is the ability to create certainty for yourself. So rather than always asking somebody else, what time are we going to be there, or how are we going to do this, or what's it going to be like when we go there, all of those questions, catch yourself in the act of depending on somebody else for creating certainty. All of those questions are a way of creating certainty. However, in the world that we live in, a world that's often surrounded by chaos and danger and things that could possibly go wrong, in that world, we need not just an adult who can create certainty for themselves, but we need a leader who's able to create so much certainty within themselves that they can transmit it to others, that they can say, here in this sphere of influence. By the way, that sphere of influence, the word kingdom means the king's dome. So that dome, that sphere, that's what the king creates by his ability to create so much certainty that he can transmit it to others, that he can say, this is a safe place to live. This is a safe place to rest, to work, to be in relationship, to develop your potentials, to flourish, to share life together. That's all down to the king. As he creates that certainty within himself, he does so by recognizing his place not just in the matrix of kings, but his connection to the divine King of Kings. And so with that centered directionality, with that deep center, with that being rooted and grounded in the truly spiritual, in the truly infinite and eternal, by connecting with that, what the king realizes is his total dependency on a power greater than themselves allows endless and effortless certainty to well up within him and to flow out to others, so that the people in his sphere of influence, in his king's dome, in his kingdom, can live lives of flourishing and fulfillment. Now, the final of the three that we're going to look at is the dark night of the soul. In this journey, we're talking about the stories of all the other kings. We watch kings rise and we watch kings fall. Some of those kings in our journey are going to be heroes to us, and we're going to idealize them. They're going to be father figures for us, those that we aspire to be like. Well, if you've heard the saying, don't meet your heroes, it's because oftentimes when you meet your heroes, it's just a matter of time until they fall from those pedestals. And that's a precursor to the dark night of the soul. To experience the impact of other people's failures and shortcomings and falling short and letting you down, even to the degree of betrayal and those deeper wounds, even to the degree of what could be deep psychological and emotional trauma. As people that we looked up to and depended upon, they fall from their pedestals. But that's not yet the dark night. The dark night happens when, without realizing it, we placed ourselves on a pedestal. We thought of ourselves as better than others, better than those who had let us down, better than those who had failed and fallen short. Without realizing it, subconsciously, we start to raise ourselves up. The dark night happens when you fall from that pedestal, when you realize that story, that person, that thing that you struggle with the most, that trigger that activates that connects you with your weakness, with your greatest fear, with your greatest weakness. When you realize you are that man, you are the one who's fallen short. You are the one who has failed. You are the one who has to face that aspect of your identity. So that's the dark night. Now, what happens there? There's going to be a tremendous resistance to that. We're not going to want to go there. But this is the alchemy process, where we take darkness and we turn it into light, where we take bitterness and we make it sweet, where we take the enemy and we make the enemy an ally, and we realize that those enemies within us, those shadows within us, those ways that we fall short within us, through this process that is dependent upon that spiritual presence that's greater than we are. The divine King of Kings sees the real king in us, even though we've fallen. And now from our villainized place, we become raised up to be a truly humanized king. And when that redemption, when that restoration takes place, that makes us a king on an entirely new level, because that version of the king, as we pass from the idealized to the villainized to the humanized king, as we pass through to be that truly human, truly awake, alert, attentive, alive, and aware king, that happy, joyous, and free king, that king can see with compassion another person's faults and failures and shadows and shortcomings, can see with compassion and love with wisdom and raise them up to fulfill their true identity. So this is that dark night of the king. So as you continue on your journey exploring this role of kingship in this centered directionality, as you go deeper in this identity as being a king, let these three aspects be guide points for you, that you're initiated into the matrix of kings just by knowing the stories. You have your place, you belong. And the deeper you go in that center to connect with that divine King of Kings, the more you'll feel that power greater than yourself flowing through you that you can now then give to others. So you belong to the matrix of kings. The currency of the king is your certainty. So connected to that power greater than yourself, you're able to create a sphere of influence, a true kingdom, king's dome, where those that you love and have been entrusted to you can live lives of flourishing and fulfillment. And finally, fear not when you find yourself in the place of darkness, feeling like you've fallen short. It's in that place, by falling, you're actually being catapulted forward into your true identity as a king.